things have gotten so rough down in Tallahassee with Florida that it's not even an entertaining joke anymore. There for the first couple of weeks of the season when they were struggling to win a game and losing to everybody, it was easy to, that have the Florida State jokes go around, with their quarterback, who seems like he's played all over the country. But at this point, it's not fun anymore, and it's not funny anymore. I mean, I'm a college football fan first, and no program, no team should have to go through what they're going through. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs and behind the scenes stuff, but I do have friends that are Florida State fans, and I don't even really talk college football a lot with them because they don't really have anything to say. Florida State, was in the news, hot and heavy back over the off season, over the summer. They decided, well, we don't want to be in the ACC anymore. We want to get more money. We want to go somewhere where there is more money. Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, really anybody that would take them, not the ACC. But the exit fees were just exponential, and without going into any of that, there are lawsuits ensued. They're trying to sue the ACC to get around, all that, to navigate through some of the exit process, and it's still an ongoing thing. From what I understand, it's still tied up in the courts. But first thing you've got to worry about, if you're really anybody, an interested party in this thing, is, let's say that Florida State is successful and they have basically sued their way out of the ACC. You can't just join a conference because that's where you want to go. You have to have an invite. What conference in good faith is going to want to invite Florida State knowing that, as soon as they get mad about something, or decide that they don't want to be there anymore, they want to go somewhere else, they're going to sue you. So it's not a good look for the school, not a good look for, really, for anybody involved. But as far as their football program goes, Mike Norvell came in and had this reputation of being this, quarterback whisperer, developer, guy who, he could, Mike Norvell could build a quarterback. Um, as time has gone on, we have seen that not to be the case. Yeah, so not taking anything away from last year. Yeah, last year was great. The 13-0 with a conference championship win over Louisville. But of course, then they go to the bowl game and get, you know, beat up 63-3, I believe it was, from Georgia in the Orange Bowl. But coming off of a year like that, a lot of people were either expecting them to repeat or come really, really close. There haven't been too many teams in the history of college football to have two seasons so different from each other as what Florida State is going through right now. Norvell decides, they want to bring in DJU from Oregon State, who before them was at Clemson. And the guy, I'm not trolling or anything. The guy's not a very good quarterback. I mean, he has flashes where, he can do something from time to time, but here's the thing, and here's really the kind of the what's been on my mind about this whole thing with Florida State and their quarterbacks and Mike Norvell. If he's supposed to be such this great quarterbacks coach that can train and develop quarterbacks and, you know, have all these tremendous playmakers, why did he have to go into the portal for somebody like that? I mean, he's been there since like 2021 or so. Um, yeah, well, no, we're 2020, took over in 2020. So I mean, he's been there for a while, and you didn't already have a quarterback in development, a high school kid, a transfer from a couple of years ago, now all of a sudden you've got to go get DJU. But I mean, giving them the benefit of the doubt, Florida State was ranked number 10 in the preseason polls going into the season. And yeah, we looked at their schedule and we were like, okay, as far as like a schedule prediction, most people didn't have Florida State going worse than 10-2, if that bad, just based on what was on their schedule. But they took a week one loss to Georgia Tech in the game in Ireland. Of course, nobody saw that one coming. I mean, it was the week one game, the first game they lost. That was a source of some memes and jokes and that. But hey, it's one game. There was a lot of traveling. Maybe they just had some hangover from that. That loss almost got forgiven and excused. But then in week two, you take the loss to Boston College. Now, when they lost to Boston College, that's when people kind of started looking at each other, going like, "Okay, well, what's going on? What's wrong? What isn't happening that we thought was going to be happening? What's happening to our season? We're undefeated conference champions last year, and yeah, there was the playoff snub and all that goes with it. Maybe that got into their head before the bowl game, but you know, you, you don't expect such a severe drop off from there to now. Well, then week three rolls around and Memphis goes down there, and even though Florida State had been playing pretty badly up to that point, could definitely have been playing better. We predicted them to beat Memphis. It was Mike Norvell's old school. That's where he had come from. Um, I think Memphis got made like 1.5 million to come and play that game in Tallahassee, and then Memphis ends up beating them. That's when serious conversations started going around about, okay, where do we go from here? Well, to be honest with you, you don't really go anywhere from here unless y'all have got and I get it. Florida State is definitely in those realms of school that they've got money and they can come up with some money. But you gave this guy what I believe at the beginning was a 10-year, $10 million contract. I mean, you gave him a Jimbo Fisher contract. And now you're pretty much stuck with him because, the way his contract reads, if they were going to buy him out at the end of this year, at the end of 2024. Now, granted, his contract is through 2031. So if they were to buy him out at the end of this year at 63 million and it goes down, I think 9 million. Yeah, goes down 9 million a year every year, up until then. So I ask this question every time the situation comes up, and it is a very pertinent question, and it gets talked about. Let's say that things just completely continue to go off the rails for Florida State, and they decide to make that change. They decide to make that move at the end of the year, and they come up with 63 million to buy this guy out. Where are you going to get the money to pay somebody else? What after you come up with $63 million to buy this guy out, to pay him to go home, to go or just go away. He ain't got to go home, but he can't stay there. If you come up with 63 million to get rid of this guy, where does the rest of the money come from? What kind of attractive contract can you offer somebody else? Florida State would be a great job for any number of coaches. I mean, the recruiting, the history, and everything that goes with it. Now, most people, if they were realistic, would say Florida State hasn't been the same, since they got rid of Coach Bowden, and then they had some success with Jimbo Fisher. But once Jimbo Fisher left, it was kind of all downhill from there. But at this point, that's neither here nor there. Florida State would be an attractive job to somebody, but you want to bring somebody in that can, at this point, resurrect and turn Florida State around, then you got to pay for it. And if you, like I said, if you come up with 63 million to buy out Norvell, do do you happen to have another at least another 30 or 40 something million laying around just for a contract, for the new guy. Not to mention, hiring new assistants and all of that other stuff. So they lose to Memphis. Week 4, they finally get a win over Cal. Cal makes the trip across country, goes to goes down there, and Florida State gets the win in Tallahassee. So the conversation didn't change about Florida State and Mike Norvell when they beat Cal. The conversation just kind of slowed down a little bit. It's almost like it bought him another week. But they had that win, so on to the next one. But then this week, the other day, they go to Dallas and they get cleaned up by SMU. You had SMU the first year in the ACC, first ACC game. They get it home against Florida State, and by all accounts, didn't really have many issues with that game. But yeah, for lack of a better way of saying it, they're kind of stuck with Norvell at this point, and their season isn't getting any easier. Just looking at my notes right quick, but they've still got Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame on the schedule, and that ain't it. That ain't it. There's a couple other games on that schedule coming up that I didn't even mention that they could lose. So hey, Florida State, man, we're at the point to where we're feeling sorry for you. I can say this about Florida State just like I would say it about most every other, you know, big time program like that. College football is better when you're better. Say the same things are being said right now about Florida. What's Florida going to do about Billy Napier? Maybe I'll get something together and I'll share with you my thoughts on that. Billy Napier should have never started the season. They should have went ahead and ripped that bandage off last year. But whatever. But college football is better when those teams are better. One of the, and it may not be just the, cornerstone rivalry of really either program, but a big game every year is the Tennessee Florida game. That's not going to be a big game this year. Yeah, Tennessee went down there and got beat last year, but Florida was just kind of starting their descent at that point. Um, nobody in their right mind is going to predict Florida to win that game in Knoxville against Tennessee this year. So, how that game goes, who knows? We'll see we'll see when the time comes. But when Florida's a better team, that is a better game. Football is just better, and the same goes for Florida State. When Florida State is in the hunt, when they're one of the best teams coming out of the ACC, especially now, with this new 12-team playoff, there is no reason, and no excuse why the ACC shouldn't have at least 3 or 4 teams in the playoffs this year. I mean, it's just all there is. That's just all there is to it. But they're not. I mean, obviously the ACC champion is going to get in with an automatic bid, but that is purely a waiting game at this point, because we're just going to have to see what the ACC does to each other, as far as their conference games from now to the end of the season, because the loser of the ACC championship game, how many losses do you have? If the loser of the ACC championship is sitting there with 2 or 3 losses, I don't know. I don't think that's going to do it. I really don't. I think it's just going to be ACC champion and it. And the same thing is happening in the Big 12. The Big 12 already top to bottom isn't that great. That with a few shining spots, but again, conference champion automatic bid, you're going to get one. Is it going to be Utah? I don't know. Utah lost the other day. So, who knows? People are already speculating that the Big 12 is going to be, and I think they're Big 10, Big 12, maybe Big 10, but they're already saying that, they're just going to be a one team playoff deal. So, yeah, I hope they can get this to get together down at Florida State. If it's time to cut ties with Mike Norvell, then go ahead and do it, and try to bring you in somebody that can get y'all going, because again, top to bottom, the ACC isn't that great. Going into the season, you just said, well, the top teams in the ACC, you got Florida State, Clemson, Louisville, maybe, who else? It was really kind of Miami. Of course, they're always, you know, talking about, how much better they're doing, and so far this year, they've been able to prove that. So yeah, football just in general is better when when teams like Florida State are better. So appreciate y'all checking out the video again. Hit that like button if you can. Share the videos around to anyone else you feel might be entertained with it, and we'll see you next time on the next one.